Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome and thank you for all for coming to this meeting tonight. It's our annual town meeting on the budget. I am Bob Carlson, the first selectman. Also from town, we have Selectman Brett Mastriani and Nicole Porter, Town Clerk Annette Pincaro, Admin Finance Director Christine Dias. In the audience, Daryl Del Grasso, who is our tax assessor, and we have our registrars, Emily Lewis and Connie Barati. A little housekeeping before we, also from the school, presenting for the school will be Alex Karpinski is the vice chair, and Superintendent Troy Hopkins. So there's going to be about 10 questions on the call this evening. The first 3 questions, the Board of Selectmen would like to send to referendum. The time and date will be discussed at the end of this meeting. The remaining 7 questions will be voted on at tonight's meeting. No, voting will take place only in person. So if you're online, you will not be able to vote. It's in person only. The first 3 questions will probably get the lion's share of discussion. So there is time to come to the town meeting if you are online and you'd like to vote on one of the other 7 questions. Also, I'd like to mention, you might have seen these when you came in. These are called QR codes. I don't know, like some of you, I got intimidated by these things until we had COVID and restaurants didn't give out menus anymore and you had to look at the QR code to see what was on the menu. So I had to learn how to do it or not eat. So we're using these for the POCD, the Plan of Conservation and Development. We're trying to get as many surveys done as possible. Last year, there was, 10 years ago, 2013, there was over 400 surveys, and we're trying to hit that number again. So if you see these and you want to pick one up on the counter, please fill out a survey for the POCD, or you can go online to the town website and you can fill it out there. Okay, so let's move on and let's elect a moderator. Do I hear any nominations for moderator? Carl? Carl nominated Lisa Marzella. Nick Mullane seconded. Do I hear any other nominations for moderator? No other nominations, hearing none. Can I get a motion to close nominations for moderator? Okay, Bill Ricker moved and second was Nick Mullane. Okay, Lisa Marzella, you've been nominated as moderator. All in favor of naming Lisa Marzella as our moderator this evening, say aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, Lisa, it's your meeting. Thank you.
Good evening. So first I'll go over the ground rules for the town meeting. All residents wishing to speak shall raise their hand to be recognized. I'll call speakers one at a time to the microphone. Before you comment, please state your name and address. Comments must be on topic, addressed solely to the question on the agenda. Individuals may have a second opportunity to speak only after everyone wishing to speak once has been recognized. Each speaker will be limited to 2 minutes and cannot yield their time to another. Before calling upon residents to speak, I will ask the presenters to present their final budget. First Selectman Bob Carlson will present the general government and capital budgets, followed by the Superintendent of Schools, Troy Hopkins, who will present the Board of Ed budget. On questions of protocol, voters may respectfully ask point of order on procedure. Voter eligibility is summarized as follows. All registered voters of North Stonington and all persons owning at least $1,000 of taxable property on the last grand list are eligible to vote on the budget. Section 7-6. Any person not legally qualified who fraudulently votes in any town meeting or votes more than once shall be fined not less than $300 or more than $500 and shall be imprisoned not less than 1 year or more than 2 years and shall be disenfranchised. Voting by assuming the name of another shall be guilty of a Class D felony, Section 9-360. Following discussion, we will then open discussions for questions 3 through 10 after we've discussed 1 through 3. 4 through 10 after that. Before moving to vote by a show of hands. A voice vote will first be called indicating yay or nay, and should it be determined that the voice vote was inconclusive, I will ask for a show of hands. Hearing no objections, these are the rules of the town meeting. I'll ask the town clerk to read the meeting call.
Warning is hereby given to the electors and those entitled to vote at town meetings of the town of North Stonington that the annual town budget meeting shall be held at the following location on the date and time indicated for the purposes of transacting the business set forth below. Location, North Stonington Education Center Media Center, 298 Norwich Westerly Road, and via Zoom. Zoom link is in the call of the meeting. Meeting ID 819-5756-6293, date May 1st, 2023, time 6:30 p.m. Only those attending the meeting in person will be able to vote. The meeting will be available for comment and viewing through Zoom at the link noted in the call of the meeting, but those attending virtually will not be able to vote. Number 1, shall the town of North Stonington approve the estimates and recommendations of the Board of Finance with respect to the annual budget, including general government operating, $5,552,383, redemption of debt, $1,382,949, and capital, $415,420 for fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, in the total amount of $7,350,752.
Should we also have asked the town clerk to read question 2 prior to the presentations? No? All right, so I'm looking for a motion to discuss question 1. Motion made by Nick Mullane, seconded by Sarah Nelson. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so now I'll open up to Bob Carlson to begin presentations.
Thank you. Those are here at the budget hearing. I'm going to give the same presentation again. So I figured it would only be fair that everyone heard the same message. If you already heard it once, well, it's like watching a rerun, but it's pretty much I'm going to do the same thing as I thought it went. It's very informative, I believe, in best way to present our budget. So I'm taking each section of our budget, hitting the highlights of what's made the budget needle move. And then at the end of my presentation, I will sit back down. If you have a question, please ask it from this podium so you'll be on camera. Last time, there was a lot of questions asked and people that were online couldn't see who was asking the question. So I can answer from over there, but the questions can be asked from here. Just announce who you are and what your address is. So tonight I'll be out talking about the general operating budget and the capital budget. General operating budget shows a 4.38% increase, and the capital budget is a 1.66% increase. So some of the budget goals we had as a Board of Selectmen before we started the process. We believe that there should be no appropriations unless it's an emergency during the year. So everything should be in the budget. Feeling is it to not put in the budget knowing you might have an appropriation later in the year is not fair to the taxpayer. So we wanted to put it in the budget. So if you do see us come through later in the year asking for an appropriation, it had to be something we had no idea was going to happen. Something broke, something changed. And that's the way an appropriation should be. But everything else that we know about would be represented in this budget. Number 2, the 298 Norwich Westerly Road building. We wanted to complete the demolition with using the ARPA funding, which we believe we have. We wanted to fund the expenses at $85,000 of the remaining building, which we think we can. And we wanted to start to produce some income for the town. And the Early Learning Center, which we signed a contract with last month, is now doing some renovation in that building, and they will be open for business probably in less than a month. So that will show some income to the town, somewhere around $30,000 for the first year in the lower level, and she's expressed interest in taking some space on the second floor. As far as undesignated fund balance, We wanted to get through the budget without borrowing from our undesignated fund. You might have seen other towns, some of our neighboring abutting towns, they dip into their rainy day fund or undesignated fund to balance their budget. And I guess that's okay if you have a lot of money in there, but you're borrowing from yourself and then you got to repay that back when you do the budget the next year. So right off the bat, you're operating at a little bit of a deficit. 3 years ago, we took 440,000 out of the undesignated fund, which the Board of Finance had to pay back immediately as we started working on the budget. Last year, 2 years ago, it was 194. Last year we did 0, and this year again we were able to balance the budget without taking any money from undesignated funds. We wanted to also look at the transfer station and the rising cost. There was something that the Board of Selectmen talked about early on in when we took office over a year and a half ago now. And we knew that there's a bulky waste pile that's going to come to a point where it's going to have to be closed down the road. There was no money in there to cover that. Also, we know that the price of moving trash, transporting trash has gone up quite a bit. And you'll hear that a little bit farther in my budget and some of the things that made our budget go up. So that's why we are instituting a transfer sticker fee starting in July of $25, bulky waste fees. And we also took money that you've probably heard about, a NIP bottle fund, which is for those small bottles of alcohol you see on the sides of the road. Each town now gets money for that from the state. We get a nickel a bottle. And we have roughly about $19,000, I think it is, that we've already received from the state for those bottles. We wanted to use those in line with trash removal. So we've started a line item with the transfer station. We've taken the money that we're getting from these nip bottles and putting into there. So shortly down the road, we can move to a compacting system, which allows us to be free and clear of any trash hauling. We can do it all ourselves and hopefully save the town a lot of money over years to come. In the budget itself on expenditures, the first one is B1, which is the Board of Selectmen area, and you see that that went up by $15,061. The main reason for that is we go into the Council of Government meetings, and I'm with 21 other CEOs, which are mayors and first selectmen. And a lot of towns right now are scrambling to get town employees. There's towns without building inspectors. There's towns without tax collectors and so on. We just recently finally hired a town planner after advertising for 3 times. So we went almost 3 months without having a planner, and it's not easy to find these people. So we looked at what we were paying our in-house people that we have now. I believe we have probably some of the best people we could get to work in our town hall, and it's a very thin town hall. There's no, like the Red Sox have the Worcester Red Sox. We don't have a backup plan. There's no, if somebody leaves or gets sick, we have to scramble to kind of fill that hole, which is fine. But if you have good people on the starting lineup, which is what I think we have, we want to make sure that nobody steals them. So we did an adjustment after looking at towns of the same size and realized that some of our employees had to have a 1-year adjustment, which is what we did this year. And that's pretty much what drove the Board of Selectmen budget up by $15,061. Probate court was just a $70 increase, which was just a typical increase in a year. Board of Finance, the increase there was $1,090 because we changed auditors. We went to King and King. Our previous auditor retired, so we had to find a new auditing company, which we did. The tax assessor is mostly contractual obligations. When our unions signed contracts, which they did this last summer, people in town hall, we obligated to pay what the union agreement was. So that's why most people in town hall are in the union, and that contractual obligation raised that by $3,237. And the tax collector line, which is B6, previous to hiring this new tax collector, we had 2 part-time tax collectors in a row. Prior to that, we had a full-time, and prior to that, it was an elected position. We found that hiring someone, first of all, coming with any kind of tax collecting background makes a big difference over hiring someone. Then there's a learning curve on how do I be a tax collector. Well, the two part-timers we had never really got certified. They were here for a short period of time. And we couldn't find, just like the planner, we advertised, we could not find a part-time tax collector with no benefits that would be willing to come in. The Board of Finance allowed the Board of Selectmen to change that position to full-time. We have since hired probably the best tax collector we've ever had. She's teaching us things that we didn't know. She spent a number of years in Wyndham and in Scotland, Connecticut. And going to this full-time position put us in a much stronger position than we were. She feels she'll probably be here for a good 5 or 6 years. And I think we'll be in a better position when that time ends. So that by making that a full-time position, it raised the budget by $14,497. Town clerk is also competitive salary, but also expenses in that area. And that raised the budget by $8,346. B15 economic development is just an increase of $465 due to dues. Recreation Commission, B16, is an additional $21,517. A lot of that, $9,195, is offset on the revenue side, because as people participate in these recreation programs, they pay to participate. So a lot of that gets offset. The money that's not offset is due to an increase in enrollment in our summer camp. We had to hire more counselors to do that. This is the big increase we had, which is on fixed charges, $91,766. That's pretty much in two areas. That's an increase in insurance, and an increase in insurance, increase in the North Somerton Volunteer Fire Company increases, and pension plan increases. So it's $91,766. Town hall increases, which is $3,334 is expenses. And also, if you were at any of the meetings, you knew we were talking about the North Stonington Quarterly, which is the newspaper we get on a quarterly basis. It goes to every mailbox. And because of the increase in price to get this done, and also increase in participants, we used to have 16 pages in that paper, and now we have 20 pages in that paper. Because of that, it costs us $2,500 more than it's cost us in the past. So that had to be raised. And so we did raise that because we think that's an important part of our town. Social service welfare is the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center, TVCCA, United Community and Health. These are small increases that some of these nonprofits that we work with do an awful lot of good for our town. I rode with a woman from Meals for Wheels a few weeks ago. It was an amazing relationship between her and the people in North Somerton that benefit from this. I've been to the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center on multiple occasions, and the people that know that center know what wonderful things they do and how many of our residents use that facility. Information technology or cybersecurity and expenses. You can imagine that cybersecurity is a big thing, and towns that don't pay attention to it can suffer. Every once in a while, you'll hear in the news that one of the towns, something happened, and now either their system shut down, or payments were made, or it was hacked into. And we have a really good IT department, and to make sure that we are protected from that, we had to put money into this program. Public safety actually went down by $52,680. And that's pretty much because the fringe went down on our state police program. We have 2 resident troopers. B27, Public Works Highway and Public Works Transfer Station / bulky waste. Those two went up by a total of $68,372.25. So why did they go up? Because we talked about trash hauling. Tipping fees went up by $31,222. And we have our trash transported by a company called Consella. There's only a couple of companies that can do this for us. And they pretty much doubled what it costs us to move trash, which is why we're looking into now going to compactors and hauling our own trash, hopefully within a year or 2. So that's $25,000 for that. And as I said, $31,000 for tipping fees. Also, there was some contractual services through the labor contract with the union this past summer. Senior citizens, $1,630 is just contractual fees for a tremendous, the person that handles all our senior citizen, the building itself and the people that are in it. She's amazing. Miscellaneous, $35,000. That basically is the Wheel Library. If you've been to our meetings over the last 3 months, the one organization in town that had the most visibility and had the most people coming and speaking in favor was the Wheel Library. They came in originally with a $120,000 budget ask. It was cut down to an even $100,000, which is $35,000 over the previous year. But in the years I've been a selectman and now the first selectman, I've never seen anybody come in, so many people come in and speak so highly about one organization. And I think we all agree that that particular organization is one of the gems in our town. And we don't have a town like community center, but if we did have one, it would probably be the library. In the last land use department, $11,871. We brought in a gentleman who had retired. He'd been with Deep for a number of years. A guy named Bill Wazeker, and he's probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met when it comes to sewer and water. He works very part-time, about 10 hours a week, lives in Preston, and he's already done some amazing things with our WPCA, inland wetlands, and land use in general. So in order, we paid for him the first 2 years out of the monies that were left over from the sewer study. And then with that money going down, we had to actually have a line item for his pay. But if there's anybody that's well worth what they get paid, it's the gentleman in this position as the analyst, water and sewer analyst for the town. So that brings us up to $232,991.75, which is the increase. I want to look at capital, and then after we do capital, I'll be glad to take any questions. So in capital, we the Board of Selectmen wanted to get away from leases. If you have 4 or 5 or 6 leases going, then when you start the budget process the following year, the first thing you have to identify is everything that you're leasing out. And if that adds up to a few $100,000, then that immediately increases that budget. So we're trying to get away from leases, and we're trying to get more into a savings plan where we put money up front, as we did with some things in the volunteer fire company, and we've done in the past with the public works department. By putting money up front and saving for it, then the hit isn't as bad when we actually buy the equipment, rather than leasing it and then having right now, as we did with the tanker truck, it's a 10-year lease and we're in year 7. And we have future capital investments that we have to worry about, which is the bulky waste pile closure. We're putting $25,000 a year away for that. Transfer station compactor upgrades, $57,450. Where that money came from was we had put money away last year for a trailer called a walking floor trailer when we were still working on outsides like Kinsella hauling our trash. Our assistant foreman, Alan Ladd, came up with an idea after visiting Preston and Montville on what if we did away with that and we hauled our own trash, which would be buying a compactor, buying our own truck, buying our own dumpsters or cans as they call them. It'll take some time to save for this, but once we do, we think it'll be a big savings for the town. So we took the walk-in floor trailer that we obligated last year, $46,000 for, and you'll hear that later on when we do a de-obligation. And we transferred $57,450 into this line, which is going to be for our contractor upgrades. We also put money in front for the North Somerton Volunteer Fire Company. They've got I think it's called an R1 rescue truck. It's one of the more expensive trucks that the fire company has. To buy a new one would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.7 million. And the chief said we can probably refurbish the one we have for quite a bit less, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 300,000. So we put $75,000 away for that as a savings plan. And a service truck that was around $54,000, I believe. We put $25,000 away for that again. So next year it only costs us that much more. So in summarizing, excuse me, When we look at the medical insurance of 48,000, pension 25,540, tipping fees of 31,222, the Casella trucking fee of 25,000 and the library of 35,000. That makes up $164,000 of our increase, which is 3.1%. The remaining of the entire Board of Selectmen budget is $68,259, and that's a 1.3% increase. So you can see that the largest part of this is except for the library, larger part of this is things that we can't challenge. I mean, the transportation for the trash and the medical insurance, things like that, they are what they are. But unfortunately, that's what moved the needle the most this year. If there's any particular questions on our budget, I'll be glad to answer them. Just please come up here and ask them, and I'll sit back there and answer from back there, or myself, one of the selectmen, or Christine Dias will answer. Thank you.
I'll open the floor for discussion. If anyone wishes to come up, ask questions, and make a comment, form a line right here. Is anyone? Sean Murphy?
Sean Murphy, 23 Kingswood. Was there any thought, the first time I recognized that there was actually a large decrease in the state trooper line. Was there any thought by the selectmen to once again go back to 3 resident state troopers as we have had in the past? Either go back to 3 or share a third one with, say, Preston or whatever, but to apply that money, to getting more coverage in town?
Sean, there has not been a discussion on that. That's not a bad idea. We do have we did get a grant for $50,000 that'll help us with some, I guess we have 10 opportunities at 5,000 each to do some additional police presence in town as when it comes to speeding and things like that. But to have overall coverage, we did not talk about that. I know that Voluntown was looking for maybe a part-time trooper. I think it's a good idea. And as you know, I meet with some of the other first selectmen from the rural towns, and I'd be glad to have that discussion. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Brett. It doesn't have to be quick since there's not many so far.
Brent Woodward, Yabucks Valley. Bob, could you give me a little explanation of the bump wheeler?
The Wheel Library?
Notable.
It is. So I can give you the explanation that we were given, and we had, as I said, that's the one organization that had the most favorable comments and testimony for. Their increase in their expenses to just operate the building had gone up. They felt that all they do for the town, they had been, for a number of years, they were underfunded by the town. I think they were at 30,000 maybe 4 years ago, and then 65,000 over the last 2 years. So they showing that what their expenses and their profit and loss were, I think was quite a bit more than, I think the 120 they originally asked for would have been kind of break even with what their expenses are. But they did get vetted down to 100,000, but they gave a wonderful presentation. I said, we like to think we're the Board of Selectmen who listen, and we had an awful lot of people give us positive feedback on all the reasons why we should support the library and give them this kind of an increase. I can't be more specific without going through the line by line of their profit and loss, which I don't have with me. But there's library representatives here, if you'd like to ask one.
Anyone else like to comment or question? Carolyn Howell?
Carolyn Howell, 495 Providence, New London Turnpike. The grant writer, are they here?
Mhm.
Budget? And then did you increase that, or is there a way to allow them to work more hours so that we get a better return on our investment?
So they can work as many hours as we instruct them to.
Mhm.
When I first came on, I noticed that there was a lot of grants that he was working on that were frivolous in my eyes because the town wouldn't pass. There's no sense of writing grant applications just for the sake of doing it.
Right.
Costs us money. And then there's one grant in particular that the town received 2 years ago for an electric truck that we got the good news is we got $168,000. The bad news was when you figured all the expenses that went with the truck was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000, and the town wouldn't support that. So when I first came on, I said to the grant writer, I'm not going to ask you to write grants for things that the town's not going to accept. Looking at what he's done so far, and the Board of Selectmen voted a few meetings ago that with the fire company, the Wheel Library, I think, and was there somebody else I'm asking the selectmen this question, we would agree to let our grant writer work with them because they are such a big part of our budget. It would only help the taxpayer if we can get them some grant money, but we think we can do it within what we're paying them now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mustafa? Sorry, am I stepping on your toes?
Oh, sorry, Mustafa.
Mustafa Rachiba, 92 Main Street. I have just two comments, not questions. So first one is following on Wheeler Library. So this library has been for years in our town doing a great job. For some reason back then, they thought they're not entitled for our help. Or maybe they just need to do it themselves. But finally, we realized that we need to help themselves. We've been helping them for a couple of years now. So I think any help towards that library is worth it because what they do is phenomenal. And that's the kind of the heart of our town. That's number one. Number two, I just want to talk about that administrative expenses. What you've been doing is great. And we should not fall back to that issue of like having problem with zoning because they're underpaid. Accountant, bookkeeper, clerk, all those guys that do a lot of works behind the scene. And then we get to that problem of like not having someone to do the job, looking for somebody that is like cheaper or can at least cover the person who left. So if I remember back then, years ago, we had a bookkeeper that we were paying her pennies and she was not that great. And that's why she was accepting what we're paying her. And because of her, we got in a lot of problems, a lot of trouble. And all the money that we had to pay her, we were paying it to the auditors because they were doing extra work to fix the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brian Rathbun.
Brian Rathbun, 263 Grindstone Hill Road. I mostly got a comment. I went to a lot of the meetings, as some of you know, and I listened to the selectmen, and plus I always have my opinion on different things, but I'm very impressed with our library. I think they deserve every cent they're asking for. And I think the selectmen did a great job when the Board of Finance sent them back, cut their budget. All the things I mentioned, obviously, wasn't totally taken, which I expected. But I want to commend our Board of Selectmen and their budget. And as one, I'm going to urge everybody to vote yes for the selectmen's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Any other comments or questions from anyone? I have a motion to close discussion in question one. Second. Mustafa. You all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I'll ask the town clerk to please read question 2.
Number 2, shall the town of North Stonington approve the estimates and recommendations of the Board of Finance with respect to the annual Board of Education budget for fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, in the amount of $15,168,084?
Thank you. I have a motion to discuss question 2. Bill Ricker. Anyone second? Carl Johnson. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, I'll ask Mr. Troy Hopkins to come up with his presentation.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at the town meeting for the first time as superintendent. Before I get started, I would like to express appreciation for the Board of Education, Board of Finance, and Board of Selectmen, and all the residents that have been interested in the budget. As a first-year superintendent, I'm surprised on how long the budget season is. It seems like we started this months ago, but I'm really happy that we're at this point. And I get to talk about how great the schools are once again. Let's go to the next slide, please. I just have this slide here. It's just a line graph that shows enrollment. The point is our enrollment really isn't declining. And also, I wanted to point out that there's 2 lines on this. The top line is with our tuition students from other towns. And we just increased the tuition for next year to $12,187 per student. And we're going to bring in probably over $300,000 to the town. This year goes directly to the town, not to the education. Doesn't go to the school system, goes directly to the town. Therefore, taxpayers pay less taxes because the schools are working really hard to earn this tuition money. And it is helpful to a school to bring in kids from other towns, helps our sports teams and clubs, and it's good diversity for the town. So we're happy to do it. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the point of this really is just to show that over the last 9 years, the education budget has averaged 1.5%, whereas the Social Security cost of living adjustment has averaged 2.7%. I think people on Social Security should have got paid more, honestly, over the last 9 years. And I think maybe education could have been funded a little bit more too, but in this particular year, we really need to fund it. With our 4.41%, we have a new teacher's contract that they have gotten. It's 11.61 over 3 years. So it's close to 4% per year. Most of our budget is benefits and salaries mostly, and then benefits. The health benefit, the health went up 5%. Okay, and we don't really have control over that. So when you look at that in a new para and custodial contract that was just settled, we have to pay our people that are helping the kids learn. So this is a time that, we do need a little bit higher budget than the last 4 years. Next slide, please. The Board of Education adopted 3 really important goals over the next 3 years. That includes our current year and the next 2. And the first one has to do with want everybody to feel safe, valued, and a sense of belonging. Okay, that's families, that's students, that's staff. And that's a real important goal. And what we have in this budget is to help us be better at achieving that goal. Another goal is innovative instruction. And the last goal is efficient and transparent processes. We're hoping to make even the budget process more transparent. Okay, but we've actually found a lot of efficiencies this year in the budget, so we can spend less. And a lot of those efficiencies we're not asking for, they're not in this budget for next year because we found efficiencies. One example is the grounds position that we eliminated and absorbed into the remaining positions in our custodial and maintenance department. We're going to see how that goes. We're trying it out. We think we can make it work, but we'll see. It's an efficiency. We're always looking for efficiencies. Next slide, please. So yes, there are a few things in this budget that are additions. And so far, people have really supported these additions of having a second social worker in the school system. It's really important. We have one social worker who's stretched. She has a very large caseload and it's very difficult to keep up. And the social, emotional, or mental health of our students and families is really, really important. And we can actually do better at that with an additional social worker. We're really, this is one of the things that was the top priority here. And I'm really glad it's still in the budget. This is really gonna make a big difference for us. We also want to do some curriculum work. You may have heard that we may be the first district in the state of Connecticut, the first school district that has district-wide New England Association of Schools and Colleges accreditation. Okay, we have a candidate visit in a couple weeks. They're gonna come and we applied already. They're gonna assess our application. And then we hope to, and it's a few years out, but fall of 2027, we'll have a visit here in the whole district and they'll determine whether the whole district has that accreditation. And we would be the first in the state of Connecticut that's gone through the district accreditation process, where one team comes, evaluates the whole district and gives us some feedback. It's a great school system, but this would be an awesome feather in the cap, and we'd be first in the state of Connecticut. Another major improvement here, and it has to do with meeting kids' needs. Some kids learn differently than other kids and at different times in their lives. And most school districts have some type of alternative education program. So we have a little bit of money in the budget for an additional special education teacher and a paraprofessional, so we can have a formalized alternative ed program, which actually may save the money save money for the district in the first year and then years moving forward. And I have another slide with some more details about that. Next slide, please. So what we're looking at is probably having about up to 10 students in grades 7 through 12. And they would spend about 3 hours on average per day in this program. The rest of the time they'd spend in the regular classes at Wheeler. Okay, now it really depends on kids. You see the asterisk and it says variable and flexible based on individual needs on the bottom. Some kids might spend the whole day over here for a good portion of the year. And we're focusing on personal, social, life skills. The cost from the previous slide, I just added it again, it's the para and the teacher. So we're looking at $77,000 in the budget so we can have a formalized program. This may offset the cost of outplacement. There are sometimes we have to send kids out of district, like our bus ride to the school and our bus ride back. We're paying for that transportation, plus we're paying for the tuition to go to that school, right? So if we had 2 outplacements that we didn't have to have or pay for, all right, $200,000 roughly, minus the cost of the program, we could actually save money in the first year. Okay, and then years down the road. And the reality is, it's better for our kids to be educated in their hometown, okay, with the people that they know, than it is to send them to some other school. If we can meet their needs here, we should do it. And with this program, we're going to be able to do it more. We're not going to be able to do it for all kids necessarily, okay, but for a lot more kids. They're going to get their needs met here. It's going to increase graduation rate. High school graduation rate. We did pilot it this year. And it was very successful, and we believe that some of those kids we piloted it with may have dropped out, but they're still in school, and they're going to become more productive, more educated future citizens of North Stonington, very likely, or some other town that they choose to move to. Let's go to the next slide, please. So just in summary, we have a great school system. Kids from Preston and Volantown are choosing to come to Wheeler more. We probably will have 25 tuition kids next year. We have 18 this year. Okay, so it's going up. We're popular. It's nice to be popular. And, I don't know if you know this, but I got to tell you, and who knows? We got great teaching going on here, right? And our 8th grade science scores, like every year, the kids take these standardized tests called the SBAC, and now they have the science test. 8th grade science scores, #1 in the state of Connecticut. Did you know that? Now you know. Did you know this? Did you know that every year CAS, the Connecticut Association of Schools, names a high school principal of the year that represent Connecticut? For 2023, it's Kristen St. Germain, Wheeler High School principal. All right. So those things don't happen in a school district that's not already really, really good. Okay? But we can make it even better. And we have an opportunity to do that this year by passing this budget. I think it's very reasonable, this budget. We wanted more. The superintendent budget, I'm not hesitant to say it. I'm going to say it. It was 6.7%. Who knew? New superintendent, right? What's he thinking? Right? 6.7%. But there were things in that budget that we could have really used. Like a dean of students at the elementary school, like another PE teacher at the elementary school, because you know what? While some of our scores are high, our fitness scores are really low. And a PE teacher, a second PE teacher, makes sense if you looked at the data, the physical fitness scores. So we wanted more. We could have used more. There's a couple things, a couple examples, and there's a few other things, but our teachers do amazing things with what they have, right? You looked at the low budgets they had, it was still a great school system. Once in a while, you need a higher budget. This is a year we need a higher budget. Okay, thank you very much. I'll take any questions.
We'll open the floor to questions or comments. Yes?
Jennifer Dayton, 201 Ruderman. I have no children in this school system. I'm here to support the education budget and the increase that is requested. There's no better measure of quality than seeing science scores at the 8th grade level. The most difficult part of the education years are middle school years. That is an amazing success. Principal of the year for the high school, another mark of quality. But I think the best one of all is 18 tuition students now and 25 next year. Families are voting with their feet. They are sending their precious children to us because we are best. And I think we should understand what kind of quality that reflects on. The savings in special education of $122,000 to save money by not sending our special needs kids out of our district, pay another school to teach them, and pay for the transportation is a wonderful idea, and it's a best practice. I support the budget and its increase.
Bill Ricker?
I don't have children in the school system. But as a senior citizen, I don't believe there's any greater investment than in our schools and in our children. During my career, I worked in residential treatment where schools sent their children who were disaffected and unable to function in their community schools. The second half of my career, I worked in the public school sector where I tried to keep children from going into institutions and expending the exorbitant cost that residential treatment programs entailed. Seeing this alternate education program, which I was a part of in my career, is essential to save us money, to keep our children in our community, to allow them to still socialize with their peers in their school system, and to have a social worker, unfortunately only, I believe it's only a half-time social worker, or is it full-time?
No, it's full-time. Would have 2 full-time.
Oh,
Next year.
excellent. To have a social worker that supports that program is equally essential. I fully support the education budget.
Anyone else? Mustafa?
Mustafa 92 Main Street. So I have 2 daughters. Unfortunately, one of them has a hearing loss. So she doesn't hear. I think from one, a little bit from the other one. And she started at Wheeler when she couldn't read. She couldn't read because she couldn't hear. There's nothing going on here, so she couldn't hear. And unfortunately, we didn't notice that as a parent. The person who noticed the issue was a teacher at Wheeler School. Teacher at Wheeler School. She's not a doctor. She's a teacher. She's the one who picked it up. From that time, we started the process. Now that child, after not reading with the help of school, special need program, teachers, everyone there, she can read. She's at high level. She's an A+ student. She does dancing. She dances in front of 400 or 500 people. A lot of confidence, and all that thing came because of Wheeler School. And we appreciate that. And every day we thank God that we are here in the community who could help. Not just the school, but the community. You guys who support this budget and help, and you pay your taxes for this school to keep going. So, and for this reason, I support the whole project for the people. Thank you, guys.
Christine, I want to ask, is there anyone with their hand up online? No? Okay, thank you. Brian Rathbun, you were next.
Brian Rathbun, 263 Grindstone Hill Road. Okay, I heard, I also went to meetings. I heard the presentation by Troy. And I told him he has a lot of enthusiasm. I don't totally agree with the educational budget. One thing is, I don't know why we need the accreditation. We all know that Wheeler is a great school. It's been a great school ever since I can remember. I graduated from there with a lot of my friends. Our class was, I think, 52. I remember right. I don't think the graduating classes now are a lot more. The enrollment hasn't really increased super lot in North Stonington. I'm gonna ask the question again. I asked it before about the school psychologist. I just read where they opened up a facility in Pawcatuck to help the kids that had problems with the pandemic. I'm gonna ask the question of, I don't know why I'm paying for that. I think that's between the parents. It's their child. They chose to have the child, they should pay for themselves. I don't have a problem with the one psychologist that if she gets overloaded, maybe she's got to refer the child and the parents to go to that facility. There's other options, I do believe. They also talked about a woodworking shop down below here. Now, I remember when they wanted to build that school across the street, they wanted everybody across the street. That was one of the reasons they wanted it. They even tore down the other building. We were convinced by them, or some people were convinced by them, that that school was going to take care of our problems. Now they want to come back to this side. Well, if you want to keep the kids on that side, how come they're not using, I do believe we have space maybe for woodworking up in the recreation building. We have I feel we got other options for this side. Maybe we can get people that, as far as agriculture, which our town is, or was, I'm not sure anymore. I know a lot of the farmers, I do believe they are. We have a greenhouse out there. We have a little bit of room. Maybe somebody can come in and use it for an educational thing to teach people how to grow their own food. I'm not sure that, I mean, I know a lot of people want to put money into education. Some of my taxes go to education too. But it also, we got to look at what our town can afford. I'm really scared that our town's going to be to a point where they say, uh-oh, we've spent a little bit too much here. And I understand the educational part is they care about the kids. I do too. But they also care about the citizens of this town that live here. And I don't want to see them move out because they can't afford the taxes here anymore. I've seen some people do that. We're a small town. We're a small pond. I think we're trying to be a educational budget. People trying to be a big fish in a small pond, and that's not going to work very long. Because when you get a big fish in a small pond, they get eaten up when that pond gets dry. And if we run out of the money part, if we run out, we're going to have to really cut. And then it's going to be a sad day for everybody, and especially our kids. So I'm not, and the other thing is the accreditation. I don't know what benefit an accreditation would do, being the only school that has one. Our high school has one. We've sent our kids to college, and some of them got in debt. In fact, I believe I paid for some of that debt through taxes. I just think we need to rework the education budget and what we're going to give our kids. And I think all we need really to give our kids is to teach them to grow up, respect the other people that are in town and out of town, and become responsible citizens to take care of their own bills, their own way, and grow up like we did. Sometimes it ain't easy. They might have to work 2 jobs. I guess you're beeping, huh? Thank you. I was wondering what that was. I thought it was my hearing aid.
We have an online hand. Kristen Montgomery.
Kristen Montgomery, you're recognized.
Hi, Kirsten Montgomery, 62C Patricia Avenue. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Kristen.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to speak in support of the school budget as a teacher who teaches over at Ledyard High School, where we do have a similar program for our high risk students in terms of their emotional needs, who are getting the support where we used to have to send the kids to other locations to have those needs met. We now have those in-house, and it has been enormously successful because we get students. If I have a student, for instance, who's struggling, instead of them just checking out for the whole class or having to go, say, to our, assistant principal's office, a call to the program and 5 minutes with the student tends to get them back on track. So they're spending more time in the classroom with their peers. It does save money in the long run easily from not having to send these students elsewhere, and allows them to remain with their peers. Everyone's familiar with the hierarchy of needs, and if these students' emotional needs are not met, it is impossible for them to learn. And following COVID, the reality is the emotional social needs of students has just increased more than ever. And the additional social worker, all of those things can only benefit our students, keep them in school, keep them in classes, improve their education, improve our graduation rates, improve citizens that we are developing at our school. In addition, a lot of the things that were referred to are educational laws that, are needs that we are legally obligated to meet, and also will affect our accreditation process. A school that loses its accreditation because it's not meeting some of these needs will have a negative effect on our entire town and our tax base, obviously. So I'm very much in support and can give firsthand evidence of how effective these extra support programs are for students who don't want to be sending them to somewhere else, and we are legally obligated to meet their needs as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Costanza, you're recognized.
Linda Costanza, Hangman Hill Road. Many of you know I was the former social worker for the district in school here for 42 years, and I retired last year. And I can tell you we were stretched tremendously then. You've had a need for 2 social workers in this school system for years, and I think it's time to address that, especially with the increase of the emotional needs in today's society. I also want to remind everybody we've had 2 alternative ed programs. One was absolutely fantastic. It was with the Mystic Aquarium, and the Board of Education cut it years ago. None of you were responsible for this. And unfortunately, when that was cut, I don't have the statistics, but there were kids who dropped out, and nothing is more serious than a person who drops out. It is an investment in today's society. You can't lose these kids. Everybody deserved to have the opportunity to reach their potential and to become good citizens, as Brian would say. And I'm so glad that when I went to school, people did support education for everyone, not just for their own children. Our social workers and psychologists do make plenty of referrals to the outside. Outside referrals require private insurance, but they're working with children in school whose problems impact their daily learning. So it's essential to have those mental health professionals in the school systems during the day. Thank you.
Linda Coates, you recognized?
there. Linda Coates, 108 Wyasip Road. I'm glad to follow Linda Costanza. I also am a retired teacher, 30 years in North Stonington schools. And I'm really pleased with the budget that has been put forward. There's been a lot of thought, a lot of adjustments, and a lot of changes. I understand some of the comments that were made about taxes going up and paying for everyone. And people leaving town, but I think when you have an accredited school, that's a draw. People move into town for their schools. We have wonderful schools, but having the accreditation is a feather in our cap. It's a really good thing to have. Social workers, Linda worked by herself forever. And we have said for years, as Linda said, we have always needed 2 social workers in the school. The needs are huge. They're more important today, I think, than at any time in our history. If you look at the news every day and if kids see the news, they come to school filled with anxiety. I taught kindergarten and I can't tell you how many anxious kids I had. And you don't know where the anxiety is coming from, and kids don't always tell you what it is, but they need to talk about it and they need activities to help with that. Times have changed tremendously. I guess that's basically all I wanted to say, but I'm very happy to see the adjustments that you made and the trend. And I understand some years we have to pay more taxes and maybe next year they'll be down because you have looked at the trends in education and costs. And that's important to everyone, but I fully support this budget.
Any other comments or questions? Anyone online? I move to close this, close discussions for this question. Nick Mullane, Sean Murphy, second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, I'll ask Antoinette to read question 3.
Number 3, shall the town adopt the ordinance section 19-24 Connecticut Homeowners Program Local Option, expanding the state program?
Did you want any explanation to what that question is?
I asked the
Darryl?
tax assessor Darryl to do that.
The state of Connecticut has a program for elderly homeowners who are at least 65 years old to get a reduction in the taxes they pay to the town. Right? It's based on their income. Currently, the income is, in the recommendation of the board, a little low, and it has been low for a long, long time. When the program first started, the program froze elderly homeowners' taxes. That program is no longer an option, but what the program did was, as somebody got to be 65, they met an income requirement and their taxes were frozen. And so as the years went on, no matter what happened, the taxes stayed exactly the same. Now we have a program where they get a percentage off. Most people, they get $100 or $150 off their taxes. It's not a lot of money, especially if somebody's paying a $5,000 tax bill or $6,000 tax bill. And the recommendations of the committee was to raise it a little bit. Any questions? And that's what they're trying to do. It's going to be a work in progress, I'm sure. As time goes on, they're going to adjust the income guidelines, but it's a start. And there's two tiers. There's a married tier and there's a single tier. And in my opinion, a single person doesn't save all that much money when their spouse dies on their taxes. Or they don't save anything on their taxes, but their expenses are still virtually the same. The taxes are the same. The amount of electricity they use is the same. The heating bill is the same. And the difference is really just not enough. So this is gonna give elderly people a little more income. It's a good program.
General, if you don't mind, I see the chairman of the tax relief committee that was formed by the Board of Selectmen's in attendance. I'd like to ask him, Lou, do you mind taking a couple minutes and just general, I know you didn't expect to get called on tonight, so, but I did just see you sneak in, so I'm gonna take advantage of it.
This was a committee that, was five of us, six of us that took part of that, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, if I remember correctly. As mentioned, this program has been in effect for a long time. It was started when the state initiated this and promised to pay for it in its entirety. And then it turns out over time that stopped. And the responsibility to pay for this fell to the town. So when we looked at this, we looked at it, what's appropriate for North Stonington? This chart, that's the last page of your handout, shows how we have broken this up and the reasons why we did that. The red is where we have increased the income level for individuals that would qualify for this program. The reason we came to those levels is they are 75% of the median income, the average family, median income for North Stonington. So the dollar amount we felt was appropriate. And the amount of benefit that the individuals will get, as you can see, reduces substantially as their income goes up. It does fall to the town to pay for this. The cost of this to the town, this is from memory, I think is less than 1/2 of 1% of the town's budget. Not a lot of money, and looking at it from the entire budget. But when you look at it as to the percentage of help that this is for some of the lower income individuals in the town, we felt that that was a substantial aid to the individuals that really needed it most. So that's why we came up with this strategy. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just say currently we have about 61 people on the program. So we really don't have a lot. With the income going up, we suspect a few more people will qualify. But it's in a good position not to be in to need it.
Any other comments or questions? Sarah? And then Nick.
So I just want to take a minute to thank the Board of Selectmen and the board headed up by Lou, or the committee headed up by Lou, to put this together because this was so very needed and quite frankly overdue. So I'm really excited about this. This is really important. And I hope to see opportunities in the future to continue to look at this and adjust it appropriately as we need to over time. There's nothing more important than when you're on a fixed income, being able to keep as much of that income as you can as prices are continuously rising, medical, groceries, all of it, right? So a $1,500 credit on your taxes is an extra $100 plus a month. And that can make a huge difference in being able to pay for prescriptions or get your groceries. So this is really important. I'm really proud of our town for putting this forward, and I'm really looking forward to getting it approved tonight.
And I'll say one other thing, by keeping the elderly in their home, you reduce the people in our school system. So people who are concerned about what it's doing with the education system, the people that are on this program do not have any children in the school system.
Nick Malloy, Miller Road. I would hope that after we get maybe a year or a year and a half of experience in this, we look at the amounts that are allocated and then look at what has come up from the people and make adjustments accordingly. And I'm indicating up, not down.
Can you just give like a sample calculation of how that works with this table?
Yes.
That'd be great. Thanks.
What we look at is the amount of income somebody brings in, okay? And it has to be less than the chart. Right? And if it's 30%, say, you get 30% off the taxes that you pay. Up to an amount that's also in the chart. So it's 30%, or if you have a real high tax bill, you don't get 30%. You only get a certain dollar amount. So it's not like a multimillionaire has a $2 million house and they say, quote, I qualify. Well, they're not going to get 30% off their taxes. They'll only get the dollar amount. So that's why that part is there.
Any other questions or comments? Can I make a looking for a motion to close discussion? Okay. Nick seconded. Who moved? Bill Ricker. Thank you. I'll ask the town clerk to read question 4.
Number 4, shall the town adopt the ordinance section 19-4, waiver of certain taxes due? The town of North Stonington's tax collector is authorized to waive all taxes due in the amount of $5 or less, provided the original tax bill did not exceed $5 pursuant to GS section 12-144C.
Can I have a motion to discuss the question? Bill Ricker and Nick Mullane seconded. Any questions or comments? No? Then I wouldn't. Thank you, Carl. Can I have a second? Sean Murphy? All right. Do we start voting now? Okay, so with regards to question 4, Antoinette, could you read that question one more time? Before we vote, we'll be doing a voice vote, right?
Question number 4, shall the town adopt the ordinance, section 19-4, waiver of certain taxes due? The town of North Stonington's tax collector is authorized to waive all taxes due in the amount of $5 or less, provided the original tax bill did not exceed $5 pursuant to GS section 12-144C.
Motion to approve. Okay, Nick Mullane seconds. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Question 4 has been approved. Would you read question 5, please?
Number 5, shall the town adopt the ordinance, section 19-5, motor vehicle tax delinquencies, creating an administrative fee for each delinquency?
Who moved? Bill Ricker. Okay. Carl seconded. Any discussion? what is the delinquency? The fee?
So it's a $5 fee if your motor vehicle bill has gone delinquent. Because there's processes that have to be done by the tax collector's office to do process with DMV to put you on a list that you can't register your vehicle. And then once you come in and pay, there's another process to take you off the list so you can re-register your vehicle. So this is just encouraging people to pay on time and offsetting the extra work done by the tax collector.
Is it a one-time $5 fee?
Anytime you would go delinquent.
Motion to approve? Carl? Second, Paula Woodward? All in favor? Anyone opposed? One? Any discussion? Okay, so the ayes have it. Please read question number 6.
Number 6, shall the town adopt the ordinance, Chapter 21 Cannabis, Article 1, prohibition of use on town property, including all sections and subsections.
May I have a motion to approve? Or open for discussion? Excuse me. Brian? Yep. Sorry? Motion to discuss? Okay. Carl seconds. Sarah Nelson motioned. All right, Brian, you could come up here. So online can hear.
The only question I got is, where it says, let's see, where it tells you about, no marijuana cigarette, cigar or pipe, use of vaping device, producing vapor of any cannabis product, or carrying or ingestion of cannabis edible substance. Now, how about if somebody has a medical marijuana card and they happen to be carrying some with them? I mean, I look at it as like if I have a pistol permit, I can't go over the state line to Rhode Island with my pistol. So I'm just wondering if, suppose somebody leaves home, they said, oh, gee, I happen to have a cigarette in my pocket, and they go on town land. So they're subject to this $50 offense. And they have a legal medical marijuana card. That's. Well, this says carrying. Yeah.
Says, lighting or carrying of a lighted cannabis or marijuana cigarette or cigar or pipe. And then it goes into use of vaping device, producing vapor of any cannabis product. It doesn't talk about
Then-
carrying the edible.
Then it says
Substance.
or carrying. Next.
It does say
next
yes.
word is
Oh,
or.
you're right.
It does say yes for carrying, but you're on town property, so it's just like the alcohol one. You can drink many places, but you cannot drink on town property, even if you are over 21. So
Right,
you
but they're
should not
saying
be bringing it
carrying.
with you on town property, town-owned property.
Well, I'm looking at it as a pistol permit type thing, like I said. If you go across the state line, you got your pistol in the car, ooh, gee.
But this is similar
yeah.
to alcohol on use of town property.
Okay, I guess you answered it.
Any other comments or questions regarding question 5? Linda? Excuse me. Carolyn Howell and then Linda.
Carolyn Howell, 495 Providence, New London Turnpike. I'm just curious, so alcohol is prohibited on all town property, byways, everything. If I'm not mistaken, hemp is from the cannabis plant, so are you talking if people are using CBD products, they would get the same penalty? Because that's not clear when you look at this.
We're not speaking of just cannabis and with,
But when you say cannabis, I'm just questioning the fact, is it all inclusive, under the state?
I don't know the answer to your question.
So then I don't think that this should be voted on if we don't have all the answers. I think that you'd be discriminating against people, maybe not intentionally, but perhaps it's something to consider.
Understood.
Carolyn, just really quick question, Nicole Porter, 44 Pinecrest Road. Cannabis and hemp, are they two different chemicals or plants? Or
No,
plant
I believe if
derivatives?
you, I'm not, I don't know the answer to that. When you look it up online, I had somebody that I could ask right at the moment, but I don't. It says they're from the same plant and the difference is the THC. So, to me, it says it's the same plant, it's cannabis. But again, hemp doesn't have the THC as I understand it, and cannabis would, so that's really the difference there. So I don't think we should be hasty in making decisions like this, especially when you don't know the impact.
Kristen, I don't think we're being hasty. I think what it is we had an ordinance that you weren't able to drink alcohol on town property or carry on town property. And we had reports recently of, now that cannabis is legal, that's been happening sometimes on town property. So the Board of Selectmen was trying to institute an ordinance that would correct that. I can't imagine that if someone has hemp without THC in it, that would be an issue. Because it's not a,
I'm not saying that people, all I'm saying is if it was me, and I don't smoke, so it doesn't matter to me. But again, you have people, it's all about just being considerate, of people that are around you and where you are. I just think that everyone should be considerate, whether you're drinking alcohol or, smoking a cigarette or smoking, marijuana or whatever you're doing. But this specifically speaks to ingesting cannabis products, like an edible substance. So technically, I'm just questioning whether that would also mean a CBD edible product or, using a CBD product like a lotion or oil. I don't know.
I understand your point, but I think it's important that the town leadership protects the town the best we can. And to institute this non-cannabis on town property ordinance makes sense to me. We can adjust it if we have to, if we find a problem, but I don't see why we want to just throw it out and not do it when we know that already there's been an issue.
I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying perhaps if you're just going by the state statute and you're not considering all the implications.
It could fail tonight. We could address it again at the next town meeting, whenever
That's all
that
I'm
is.
People would.
Okay, thank you.
Brett Mastriani, 162 Button Road. I just want to follow up on Carolyn's and I'm thinking of the farmer's market. And in the farmer's market, there is hemp derived product, whether it's clothing, whether it's mints. There are things CBD related that are sold there, but clothing's one of those items too. And if we read this for what it is, then those items would be banned or you'd be fined for offense. So it might be something that we want to either try to, I think we can make a motion to amend those tonight, right? Or
So
Put it off.
the public act that's referenced in here said that, hemp products are exempt. I don't know CBD versus hemp, but things made with hemp flower and the hemp plant, it specifically calls out in that public act 21-1 from the June 2021 special section that those are not included in the state legislation.
I understand that, but then we go into our section of what is banned on town property, even though we are
Because
referencing.
because you're referencing it, you don't have to call out every specific. It's a over
I-
30-page document.
I would be hesitant voting.
So I don't think we should amend it this evening, since it's already been advertised as is, so I'd rather have it just, if there's a vote to remove it or vote no, we can bring it up at an additional meeting somewhere down the road.
And this is another town's ordinance that so it has been vetted by other towns and is in place. In case anyone was.
Would you want to make a motion? Oh, excuse me, Brent. Brent. Yeah.
So I'm gonna start by saying, I know what I'm saying, in truth, because I just read it. And it ends there. Right, Bob? Well, once you got talking about this, it spun me up for a whole bunch of reasons. And then we got into Carolyn Hemp part of the conversation. Then we got the sign down the road that talks about CBD. That stuff, whatever that is. Is that part of this? Nothing. Stuff we buy down the corner. Is that part of this? Not if it doesn't have THC in it. You can buy alcohol down the road too, Brent. Boy, so I don't think I'm ready to make a decision. And Bob, you're say yay or nay, put this off. No, I'm not saying, I'm saying I'd rather put it off to a future town meeting. So we'll not vote on it tonight? If there's a motion.
To discuss. The motion is for discussion.
We have an online hand from Anita.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I was just going to comment on the cannabis. Is there a way just to say the THC containing cannabis? Because really that's the only issue, I think. That's the psychotropic portion of cannabis. CBD, lotion, oils, edibles, none of those give you any none of them have psychoactive effects. And I mean, that would solve the problem with hemp, with CBD, with any of those other projects. You know, CBD is one, CBN, there's a whole bunch of different cannabinoids. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Bill Ricker.
Bill Ricker, Wyasip Road, based on the confusion, not just among the public, but among the folks who proposed this ordinance, I recommend that it be postponed, revisited, and come back to the next town meeting. Thank you.
Sean. There's been a motion from Sean Murphy and seconded by Bill Ricker to table this question to the next town meeting. Nick? Oh, wow. No, I'm sorry. There's been a motion and it's been seconded. I apologize. I should have called on you first. Okay. Okay, thank you. Nick?
It says including public right-of-ways. So that would be town roads and the shoulder. If you stop a car and there's someone smoking, say, like the driver, and there's 4 or 5 in the vehicle, are you going to give 1 ticket or 5? And I would say 5. Isn't the state wonderful? They gave us more gambling and marijuana.
As a point of order, I have to do a little housekeeping. Before accepting Mr. Murphy's motion, seconded by Bill, I needed to make a motion to close the discussion. Nick Mullane, Carl Johnston, All in favor of closing the discussion? Thank you. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now I'm looking for a motion to table this question. Was it not void? Okay. So all in favor of tabling question number 6? Thank you. Say aye. Opposed? Thank you. I'll ask the town clerk to read question 7.
Number 7, shall the town approve amendments to the local ordinances, businesses, vendors, hawkers, and solicitors, 6-192, 6-193, and 6-195, and Chapter 15, peddlers and solicitors as presented and made available at the town clerk's office at 40 Main Street, North Stonington, Connecticut.
Carl made the motion, seconded by Nick. All in favor? Any discussion? Brian? And then Nick?
This amendment, or the ordinance that's being proposed, where it says, you go down the bottom, it says add solicitation includes the making of surveys for research purposes, analysis, opinion polls. My question would be, does this include if there's a petition brought to the town, can we go down like the last time it was a dump thing that I had to petition on? I stood out in front of the post office. And I got signatures. Is that gonna affect that at all?
No, this doesn't affect anything that's political in nature. This is just if people are going around to get survey information door to door.
Okay.
Nick Mullane, Miller Road. I have found in my experience that the vendors that come in sometimes are not very truthful. And I found the only way to make sure you got the full story, it should be referred to the trooper and have them do a background check to see if there is any prior record by the individual.
Gary Nino?
Gary Anino, 91 Main Street. How does this impact when, for instance, when we were contemplating speed bumps in the village and the selectmen asked us to do a survey and see how the people of the village felt about it? Does it impact that in any way? Because we went door to door. Jonna did it first, then I did it several years later.
So as Christine says, it doesn't affect anything that's political in nature.
But that's not political. That's
Town,
the improvement.
town business. It does not affect anything that is town business related as such.
What are we targeting? I'm confused by this whole thing. Anybody else confused by why we're doing? Got a lot of nods here. Somebody give me some color. Thank you.
So we looked, well, first thing is we had an ordinance like this in 2 separate places of our town ordinances. So when you looked at one, you found one, and then there was one that was amended, I want to say about 15 years later, that was it never took off the old one. So there were some redundancies there. And then as we started looking at it, we looked up what other towns were doing and how we can address those situations with our ordinance, because there are some things in here, for instance, according to our ordinance that we have on the books, whoever gets the license or the permit is supposed to put a list of everyone they're visiting. And then on the flip side, anyone that ordered, they're supposed to supply that to the town. We've never gotten those. So these are things we looked at and said, if we're not making that part of the process, then why is that in our ordinance? That was one of the issues. The second issue was some of the events that we have in town. So we have the light parade, we have the farmer's market, we have numerous events that it's really not cost, or even if the school's having something, it's not cost effective for that organizer to have every vendor get a permit at $25 fee. So if you're making scarves out of your house and you're doing a local craft fair at the school, to make you pay $25 for that fee, that vendor permit, it's not productive. But as we looked at it, the vendors that are doing a one-day event are also paying the same amount as somebody like the solar companies that are coming to your house for a full year. So we addressed that by upping the fees to, it's $25 for a one-day activity. And then for a 6-month period, it's $100 per person. And for a year, it's $200 per person. And that was comparable to other towns. So those are the things we are addressing. It's a cleanup of our old ordinance, and then adding in those few other pieces.
Are there any other questions? Carl?
Carl Johnson, AV Ruderman Road. Brett, would that also be so that if somebody was to come to my house and I called the town hall, it would be on record so I could check and make sure they were still doing it?
Yes, they should have, I think you give a certificate. There are towns, and this is something we could talk about later, that actually list them online. So all the people for the solar companies, you can go on the certain town websites. It'll list their name and what company they're with. So everybody with outstanding permits to solicit in the town are on one side of the website. And this is per person, not per company. So if there's 5 people for one solar company, each person has to go through this process.
John Olson?
Don Olson, 358 Wyosset Road. I'm seeing this for the first time, so excuse me if I'm ignorant of the full understanding of it. But it does say within any grounds within the town, on any streets, walks, or grounds, or about on private property. If I was to hold some event on my land and I invited individuals to come for a private or perhaps a public event, I would have to have every individual that I invite to be a vendor to pay a fee?
No, this is just for public property. So town property, town, and going door to door in the town, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Winona?
Winona Burdine, 216 Casetta Kill Road. I just have a comment on the renumbered Article 5. Such other credentials and other evidence of identity, including a photograph to be attached to the permit, which I'm in support of. However, the second piece of this, and good moral character and conduct of the applicant may be reasonably required by the first selectman. While I get its intent, and no offense, Bob, I don't feel that that's having an opinion by one person as whether or not somebody is good moral character doesn't seem to really make sense to me.
Any other comments? Questions? Have a motion to close the discussion? Oh, Sarah, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. Sarah seconded, Bill made the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. I'd like a motion to move the question number 7 to vote. Bill Ricker made the motion. Nick Mullane seconded. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? 1, 2, 3. 3 opposed. So do we count No? Okay. All right, so I'd like to ask the town clerk to read question number 8. We're getting there.
Number 8, shall the town clerk be allowed to publish an abbreviated version of the legal ad regarding the notice of passage of these ordinances?
Any discussion? Motion to discuss? Second? Bill? Ricker? Sal Costanza? Can you come up to the microphone, please, for the online? Thank you.
Sal Costanza, Hangman Hill Road. Can you define abbreviated? What do you mean by abbreviated?
If this doesn't pass, then what I need to do is, if an ordinance is a full page, I have to publish the full ordinance in the newspaper. Abbreviated just gives a brief summary of the ordinance, and there's also a legal disclaimer that's included in the legal ad. So it saves a lot of money for the town in terms of publishing. Yep, thank you.
Anyone else? Carl and Will Mason seconded. The motion to move question 8. Carl's ahead of me. He's got to go somewhere. Who's seconding? Sarah Nelson. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. Town clerk, could you read question number 9?
Number 9, shall the town be obligated the capital project funds animal control vehicle in the amount of $4,929.91, NSAA ambulance stretcher lease in the amount of $954.49, NSBFC breathing apparatus lease in the amount of 74 cents, and NSBFC radio replacement in the amount of $1,456.88.
I have a motion to discuss question 9. Bill Ricker. Second, Carl Johnston. Any comments?
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
So the reason we're doing this, it's the opinion of the town attorney that anytime we finish a capital project, if there are funds left in the account, we have to go either as part of a budget process or to a town meeting to close out that account and deobligate those funds and move them back into the undesignated fund. So that's why these projects, even with their small amounts of 74 cents, are called out on this question.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Sarah makes a motion and Carl seconds to close the discussion. All in favor? Opposed? All right, motion to vote on number 9 by Carl Johnson, seconded by Will Mason. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, number 9 goes. You read number 10, please.
Number 10, shall the town deobligate the capital project fund walking floor trailer in the amount of $46,000?
A motion to open discussion. Bill Ricker makes a motion. A second. Second, Brett Mastrioni. Any questions or comments? Okay.
So this project was, we were planning to purchase a replacement for the walking floor trailer. With the new plan for the transfer station, we are no longer in need of that piece of equipment. So we are deobligating this project because we know we're not going to purchase the equipment. Nothing has been purchased. It just has a savings account of 46,000.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to move question number 10 to vote? Nick Mullane, Carl Johnson. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Excuse. All right, now, I would just like to ask the clerk to read the notice of referendum.
Notice of referendum. Resolved. The Board of Selectmen pursuant to its authority under Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-7, hereby removes questions 1, 2, and 3 to be considered at the May 1st, 2023 annual town meeting cited in the prior resolution to a referendum to be held on May 15th, 2023. The hours for voting at said referendum shall be established by vote at the May 1st, 2023 town meeting. Said hours are recommended by the Board of Selectmen to be 8:00 a.m. to 8:00 p.m.
I'm looking for a motion to accept the hours of voting from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on May 15th. Mustafa motioned and Phil Mendolia seconded. All in favor? Opposed? No, okay. Motion to adjourn, Nick Mullane. Second. It's a tie between these three.